My life did not fall apart slowly. It collapsed in one morning. I woke up early that day, rushed through my routine, and kissed the mirror with a tired smile. I believed in my future. I believed in my work. I walked into the office thinking it was a normal day, maybe even a good one. The building smelled like coffee and printer ink, just like always. People nodded at me, but their smiles felt tight. I didn't notice at first. By noon, I was sitting in a glass conference room with faces that refused to meet my eyes. Words like investigation, irregularities, and violation were thrown at me. Before I could fully understand what was happening, I was fired, accused, and escorted out like a criminal. Security walked beside me as if I might run. As we passed the open offices, I saw Daniel standing behind a glass wall. My best friend. My partner. He didn't look at me. He couldn't. He was the one who reported me. He was the one who took my work and blamed me for the mistake. By evening, my phone stopped ringing. Messages went unread. Friends believed the story. The silence was loud. My name was ruined before the sun went down. Daniel had been like a brother to me. We built the company together from nothing. I still remembered the early days clearly, working from a small rented room, sharing one laptop, counting coins for lunch, late nights, cheap coffee, big dreams. We promised each other we would rise together or fail together. I believed that promise without doubt. When the board told me Daniel had spoken first, my chest tightened. He told them I manipulated numbers. He said I moved funds without approval. He said it calmly, confidently, like he had rehearsed it many times. It was a lie, a clean lie, the kind that fits neatly into spreadsheets and reports. But lies sound like truth when repeated by the right person. Daniel knew the numbers better than anyone. He knew how to twist them just enough to confuse people who didn't look closely. I tried to explain. I asked for time. I asked for an audit. I asked Daniel to speak up. No one listened. The board had already decided. Their faces showed relief, not concern. I wasn't just fired, I was erased. And the man who erased me was someone I trusted with my life. Losing the company was only the beginning. I told myself I could survive that. Jobs come and go. Reputations can be repaired. At least that's what I told myself while sitting alone in my apartment, staring at the walls. Then the eviction notice came. My savings were frozen because of the investigation. Bills piled up. I sold small things first, then important ones. The apartment was gone before I could even feel settled in my grief. Then my relationship collapsed. My girlfriend sat across from me on the edge of the bed, her hands folded tightly together. She looked tired, but not from worry, from doubt. She said, "I don't recognize you anymore." Her voice was calm, like she had practiced the sentence. What she meant was, "I don't trust you." She didn't ask questions. She didn't wait for answers. That night, I packed my life into 2 bags. Clothes, old documents, a few personal items. Everything else stayed behind, including the version of me that believed loyalty was enough. When I closed the door, it felt final, like a chapter ending without a warning. My name spread faster than the truth ever could. I searched it online once and immediately regretted it. Articles, headlines, comment sections filled with strangers who knew nothing about me but felt free to judge everything. Words like fraud, greed, and disgrace followed my name everywhere. Some comments hurt more than others. People who said they always knew something was off about me. People who laughed. People who celebrated my fall. I stopped scrolling, but the damage stayed in my head. Even when the screen was dark, I could still hear their voices. I stopped going out. I avoided familiar streets. I kept my hood up and my eyes down. When my phone rang, my heart raced, but I rarely answered. When it stopped ringing, the silence felt worse. Shame became heavier than hunger. Some days, I skipped meals without noticing. I felt smaller every day, like I was disappearing without meaning to. I wasn't just unemployed. I was publicly marked. Everywhere I went, I felt watched, even when I was alone. The world had decided who I was, and my voice didn't matter anymore. One night, I stood at the bus station with no plan. The air was cold, and the lights flickered above me. People moved past with purpose. Bags packed, tickets ready, destinations clear. I had none of that, just 2 bags at my feet and a heavy feeling in my chest. I thought about staying, fighting, trying to clear my name, but every path felt blocked, every door was already closed. I realized something painful and honest in that moment. If I stayed, I would die slowly. Not physically, maybe, but mentally, emotionally, piece by piece. I was already halfway gone, so I made a choice that felt both terrifying and peaceful. I left. No goodbye. No explanation. No messages sent. I didn't tell my family where I was going. I didn't post anything online. I didn't look back when the bus doors closed. As the city faded behind me, I felt empty, but also strangely light. I wasn't running towards something. I was running away from who I had become. That night I disappeared. I moved to a small town where no one knew me. It wasn't special or beautiful. That was the point. The buildings were plain, the streets quiet, and the people kept to themselves. I rented a tiny room above a closed-down store. The ceiling was low and the heater barely worked, but it was cheap and anonymous. I used my middle name instead. Saying it out loud felt strange at first, like wearing someone else's coat, but over time it became a shield. That name had no history, no accusations, no headlines. It allowed me to breathe again. I worked cleaning floors at night in office buildings and grocery stores. I pushed a mop while listening to the hum of machines and distant traffic. My hands cracked from chemicals, and my back ached constantly. When my shift ended, I walked home in the dark and unlocked my small room. No one asked where I came from. No one cared about my past. To them, I was just another worker trying to survive. That silence saved me. It gave me space to exist without explaining myself. Life became simple and hard at the same time. There was no room for dreams or long-term plans. Every day was about getting through the next few hours. I woke up tired, worked until my body hurt, and fell asleep before my thoughts could catch me. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. I learned how little a person actually needs to survive. Cheap food, a bed, a reason to wake up. I counted every dollar and planned every meal. Some days I skipped lunch so I wouldn't worry about money later. Hunger became familiar, like an old ache. Some nights I cried quietly so no one would hear. I buried my face in a pillow and let everything I held in during the day come out. Other nights, I felt nothing at all. No sadness, no anger, just emptiness. Those nights scared me more. I didn't talk to anyone about my past. I didn't talk much at all. Survival mode left no space for reflection. It was mechanical, emotionless, and exhausting. But it kept me alive. And at that point, that was enough. Starting over taught me humility in ways success never did. In my old life, people listened when I spoke. My opinion mattered. My time was respected. Here, none of that existed. I was invisible, and sometimes I was treated like I deserved to be. I learned what it meant to start at zero. No reputation to lean on. No connections to help me. No one cared about what I used to be. They only cared about whether I showed up on time and did my job right. No titles, no respect, no shortcuts, only effort. At first it hurt. My pride fought me every day. I wanted to explain myself, to prove I was more than a mop and a uniform. But slowly something changed. I stopped comparing my past to my present. I focused on the work in front of me. I learned patience. I learned how to listen. I learned that effort, even when unseen, still has value. Humility stripped me down, but it also rebuilt me quietly. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't pretending to be strong. I was actually becoming it. Years passed without ceremony. Seasons changed, but my routine stayed the same. Winters were the hardest. Cold mornings, long nights, streets empty and silent. Sometimes it felt like the whole town was holding its breath. I watched my old life from far away. Late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I searched Daniel's name. He was famous now. Interviews, awards, smiles that looked practiced. He talked about leadership, integrity, and vision. People applauded him. They believed him. Each time I saw his face, something twisted inside me. Not anger anymore, but a deep, quiet exhaustion. I wondered if the truth would ever matter. I wondered if disappearing had made me weak. Then I turned off the screen and went back to work. The floor still needed cleaning. The bills still needed paying. Reality didn't care about injustice. It demanded effort every day. That long winter taught me endurance. I stopped waiting for justice to arrive on its own. I focused on surviving another day, another season, another year. One night, after work, I sat alone in my tiny room and looked at my hands. They were rough and scarred. They told a story of survival, not defeat. That was the night something shifted inside me. I made a promise to myself. I will not stay broken. I didn't know exactly what that meant yet, but I knew I couldn't remain stuck in survival mode forever. I started small. I borrowed books from the library. Business, technology, psychology. I read slowly, sometimes rereading the same page because my mind was tired. After work, instead of collapsing into bed, I studied. I watched free lectures online. I practiced skills on an old laptop that overheated constantly, slowly, quietly. No announcements, no goals posted online. There was no rush. Growth became my private rebellion. While the world believed my story was over, I was rebuilding in silence. Each new thing I learned gave me a little more confidence. Not hope yet, but direction. And direction was enough to keep going. Discipline did not arrive as motivation. It arrived as routine. I realized early that waiting to feel inspired was a luxury I couldn't afford. So I built rules for myself and followed them even when I was tired, bored, or discouraged. I woke up at the same time every day, even on days off. I worked my night shifts without complaint, then studied during the quiet hours when the world was asleep. Some mornings my eyes burned from lack of sleep, but I kept going. Discipline was not about being strong. It was about being consistent. I tracked my progress in a small notebook, pages filled with notes, mistakes, corrections. No one ever saw it. That made it more honest. There was no one to impress, only myself to answer to. Slowly, discipline changed how I saw myself. I stopped feeling like a victim of my past and started feeling responsible for my future. Each completed task built trust between me and myself. That trust became the foundation for everything that followed. Discipline didn't make life easier, but it made me reliable. And reliability became power. The strength I gained was not loud or visible. It didn't show in mirrors or conversations. It lived inside my choices. I stopped reacting to memories of the past with anger. I stopped replaying old arguments in my head. Pain was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I learned to sit with discomfort. When things felt overwhelming, I didn't escape anymore. I stayed present. I worked through it. That alone made me stronger than I had ever been before. I understood now that strength wasn't about winning or proving people wrong. It was about not breaking when no one was watching. I stopped asking myself, why did this happen to me? That question had no answer that could help me. Instead, I asked, what can I do with what's left? That question changed everything. This new strength was quiet. It didn't need approval. It didn't demand justice right away. It trusted time. I became harder to shake, harder to manipulate. I wasn't healed yet, but I was solid. And for the first time since disappearing, I felt prepared for whatever came next. I didn't announce my return to the professional world. I tested the waters quietly. I created an online profile using a different name and offered small consulting services. Nothing flashy. Nothing that would attract attention. Just honest work. The first jobs paid almost nothing, but I treated them like they mattered. I delivered more than expected. I met deadlines. I communicated clearly. Slowly, clients came back. Then they referred others. I stayed invisible on purpose. I worked from my tiny room late into the night, balancing a laptop on a small table. Outside, the town slept. Inside, I was rebuilding my skills piece by piece. No applause, no recognition, just progress. I learned to enjoy working in the shadows. There was freedom in being underestimated. No pressure to perform for an audience. No expectations to meet except my own. The work spoke quietly for itself. Each completed project reminded me that my value never disappeared. It was only hidden. And hidden things, when protected long enough, grow strong. Money began to stabilize my life, but control stabilized my mind. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting to emergencies every day. I could plan, I could choose, I could say no. I built systems for everything: work, learning, rest. I stopped letting emotions dictate my actions. When something went wrong, I adjusted instead of panicking. That calm was new to me. It felt unfamiliar but powerful. I watched people carefully now. I listened more than I spoke. I understood patterns, how trust is built, how it's broken, how power shifts quietly over time. Losing everything once had taught me to never move blindly again. I also learned restraint. I didn't chase opportunities that felt wrong. I didn't rush growth just to feel successful. Control meant patience. It meant knowing when to act and when to wait. For the first time since my fall, I felt steady. Not excited, not proud, just centered. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I was building something sustainable, something that couldn't be taken from me easily again. The new version of me didn't arrive suddenly. It formed slowly through habits, choices, and quiet endurance. When I looked in the mirror, I saw someone different, not because of age or appearance, but because of presence. I changed how I spoke, fewer words, clearer meaning. I carried myself with calm confidence, not the forced kind I used to have. I didn't need to be seen anymore. I needed to be solid. I didn't erase my past. I understood it. I accepted it. It no longer defined me, but it informed every decision I made. I knew how fragile success could be. I knew how quickly trust could vanish. That knowledge kept me sharp. This new identity wasn't built on titles or recognition. It was built on discipline, humility, and control. I wasn't chasing my old life. I was preparing for a different future. By the time I was ready to return, I wasn't the man who disappeared. I was someone stronger, someone quieter, someone ready. I didn't announce my return. There was no dramatic moment, no warning signs for anyone watching. I simply came back. Same city, same streets, different man. The buildings looked familiar, but they felt smaller, like I had outgrown them. Or maybe I had finally learned how to stand on my own. I rented a modest place on the edge of town. Nothing flashy. I kept my name off social media and avoided old contacts. This return wasn't about reclaiming attention. It was about observing, listening, understanding how things had changed while I was gone. I walked past my old office one afternoon. The logo was bigger now, more polished. People rushed in and out, dressed sharply, laughing loudly. I felt nothing. No anger, no nostalgia, just distance. That surprised me. Coming back felt like stepping into a story that had continued without me. I wasn't offended by that anymore. I didn't need my absence to be noticed. I had returned on my own terms, with patience and control. I wasn't here to rush anything. I was here to finish what time had started. The city had moved on, just like everyone else. New cafes replaced old ones. New faces filled familiar spaces. Even the conversations felt different, faster, louder, more confident. Success had reshaped the city's priorities, and failure had been quietly erased. Daniel's name was everywhere. Billboards, panels, industry events. He was treated like a symbol of innovation and leadership. People quoted him like he was wise. They repeated his words without questioning where they came from. From the outside, he looked untouchable. But when I listened closely, I noticed cracks. Former employees spoke carefully, choosing words that avoided praise. Some partnerships had ended suddenly. A few projects were delayed without clear reasons. Nothing dramatic, just patterns. Power changes people, but pressure reveals them. Daniel carried himself with confidence, but it felt rehearsed now. Forced. I could see the weight behind his smile. He had built everything on a lie, and lies demand constant maintenance. I didn't celebrate that. I simply observed. The world had changed, but not in the way people believed. Beneath the surface, things were already shifting, and time was doing the work for me. We crossed paths at a conference neither of us expected the other to attend. I stood near the back, listening quietly, blending in. Daniel walked onto the stage to applause. He spoke with confidence, telling stories that sounded familiar, too familiar. After his talk, the room filled with people eager to shake his hand. I waited. When the crowd thinned, I stepped forward. At first, he didn't recognize me. His eyes passed over my face like I was a stranger. Then something changed. His smile froze. His posture stiffened. For a brief moment, we just stared at each other. Years of history passed between us without a word. He tried to recover, extending his hand like nothing had happened. I shook it calmly, firmly. "Good to see you," he said. I nodded. "It's been a long time." My voice didn't shake. That surprised him. The conversation was short and polite, but tension filled the space. He knew I was back, and for the first time in years, he looked uncertain. I walked away without saying more. I didn't need to explain myself. My presence alone was enough to disturb the balance. After that day, things changed subtly. I began receiving invitations to meetings, panels, private discussions. People were curious about me, but not suspicious. They saw experience, not scandal. My past wasn't common knowledge anymore. Time had buried it. When I spoke, people listened. Not because I demanded attention, but because my words were clear and grounded. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't promise miracles. I offered solutions. That was enough. Daniel noticed. I could see it in the way his eyes followed me across rooms, the way he interrupted conversations when I entered. He wasn't used to sharing influence, especially not with someone he thought was gone forever. The power shift wasn't dramatic. No confrontations, no public conflict, just a slow change in gravity. People started asking questions, comparing approaches, noticing differences. I didn't compete with him directly. I didn't need to. The truth doesn't rush. It waits until lies collapse under their own weight. I stayed patient. I stayed quiet. And I let consistency do the work that anger never could. The truth returned the same way it had left, quietly. Old documents resurfaced during a routine audit. Emails that were once ignored now looked suspicious. Numbers that didn't align raised new questions. What had been buried by urgency was uncovered by time. People began connecting dots, not because I pushed them to, but because patterns demand attention eventually. Daniel tried to control the narrative just like before, but this time his explanations felt thin, defensive, rushed. I was asked to provide insight. I did, factually, calmly, without emotion. I didn't accuse, I didn't dramatize. I simply explained processes, timelines, and decisions. The truth didn't need decoration. The room felt different now. Heavy, serious, no applause, just silence and careful note-taking. I recognized that silence. I had lived in it before. Daniel avoided eye contact. His confidence cracked under scrutiny. Lies age poorly, especially when built on other people's losses. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that the story everyone believed was incomplete. The truth doesn't shout. It waits, and now it was impossible to ignore. The shift was noticeable, even before anything became public. Meetings Daniel once led were postponed or reassigned. Invitations slowed. His name, once spoken with certainty, was now followed by pauses. Silence can be louder than accusation. Investors started asking questions. Partners requested documentation. Lawyers appeared in conversations where they were never needed before. Daniel responded the way he always had, by blaming others, former employees, market pressure, miscommunication. But the pattern was clear now. Too clear. This time no one rushed to protect him. Power only lasts as long as people believe in it. And belief was fading. I watched from a distance, not with satisfaction but with understanding. This was not revenge. This was consequence. Daniel tried to reach out to me again, messages that sounded friendly but carried desperation underneath. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The truth had taken control of the story, and it didn't need my voice. The fall didn't happen in one moment. It happened through delayed decisions, cautious emails, and lost trust. The same slow erosion I once experienced now returned to its source. The media changed its tone quietly at first. No bold headlines, just careful language. Words like under review and questions raised appeared where praise once lived. Interviews were canceled, appearances postponed. Daniel's image faded from the spotlight he once controlled. Then the story broke fully. Documents were released. Timelines explained. The narrative everyone accepted for years began to unravel. The same public that once celebrated him now demanded clarity. The same press that ignored my silence now examined it closely. I was mentioned, not as a victim, but as context. A missing piece that suddenly made sense. People began to ask how this had been missed before. The answer was simple. They didn't want to look. Daniel issued statements, carefully written, apologetic without admitting guilt. But apologies don't erase patterns, they highlight them. Watching it unfold felt surreal. I remembered the loneliness of being judged without defense. Now the world was asking questions I once begged them to ask. I didn't feel joy. I felt closure beginning to form. The truth had finally found its audience. Daniel asked to meet, not through assistants or emails this time, directly. I agreed, not out of obligation, but curiosity. We met in a quiet cafe, far from cameras and noise. He looked older, tired. The confidence that once filled every room now struggled to sit upright. He talked first, as he always did. He said he did what he had to do. That pressure forced his choices. That success demanded sacrifice. I listened without interrupting. When he finished, he waited for forgiveness, or anger, or something dramatic. I gave him none of it. I told him the truth didn't need my approval. It had already spoken. I told him I didn't disappear because I was weak. I disappeared because I needed to survive. He asked if I hated him. I said no. That answer hurt him more than anger ever could. Hate keeps people connected. Indifference ends the story. I stood up, paid for my coffee, and left. That was the last time we spoke. I didn't rebuild what I lost. I built something better, something honest. My new company grew slowly, intentionally, no shortcuts, no exaggeration. Transparency was not a slogan. It was a rule. People trusted me because I didn't promise perfection. I promised accountability. Clients came not because of my past, but because of my consistency. My work spoke before my name did. Opportunities followed naturally. Speaking invitations, partnerships, recognition, I accepted them carefully. I never forgot how quickly success can disappear when it's built on the wrong foundation. This rise felt different. Calmer, grounded. I didn't chase validation anymore. I focused on building something that could last even if I walked away tomorrow. I was no longer trying to prove I was innocent. That chapter was closed. I was simply living honestly, and that honesty created its own momentum. Success arrived quietly, the way it should, and this time, nothing about it felt fragile. Daniel lost everything he stole, his reputation, his influence, his certainty. Not because I took it from him, but because it was never truly his to begin with. Lies borrow time. Truth owns it. I gained something greater. Not fame, not revenge, not applause. Peace. I woke up without fear. I worked without resentment. I slept without replaying the past. The years I disappeared were not wasted. They were necessary. They stripped me down and rebuilt me into someone who could not be destroyed the same way twice. When I returned, everything had changed. The city, the people, the power. But the most important change was inside me. I no longer needed recognition to feel whole. I no longer needed justice to move forward. Some stories end with victory. Mine ended with freedom. I disappeared for years. When I returned, everything had changed, including me.